All right, so I suppose we go through the basics first. Obviously, you need your onions peeled. A little bit further down. Onions peeled, ready to go. We have our puff pastry, pre-rolled, sorry. Our rockets, our salt, sugar, and our egg. I did put down, I don't have a pastry brush. This is just gonna egg wash the pastry in the end. I don't have one, so I'm gonna use a bit of paper roll, but you can use your fingers, and a little bit of olive oil. And that is all. So it's quite a simple recipe. The reason we use red onions is because they're generally sweeter. They caramelize a lot easier and they're more depth and flavor. So the first thing we're going to do is make sure your oven is on at 180 degrees, preheated. We've got our tray, baking tray. I've got parchment paper on here, but hopefully you've got a tray that's got non-stick. If it's not non-stick, add just a bit of flour on there. Yeah, if you haven't got that. Lovely ketchup. If I'm going too quick for anybody, just let Chris know. I can see you as well, so I can always go back a step. In this recipe, there's only kind of two main elements with cooking: is the onions, caramelized onions, and the pastry. But you know, because it's not a lot to cook, there's a lot that can go wrong with that. So if we're ready to go, yeah, Lisa, thumbs up if you're ready to go. Yeah, perfect. So your onions, we're going to start slicing our onions. So we're just going to get rid of those lot. So top your onion. I've got the root still on. I'm just going to slice it down the center. Okay, so with the root, I'm just going to go at an angle, just like this. You can see, I don't know how much better I can make that see. About an angle of what, maybe 45 degrees. And then just going to slice it off like that. Basically, if we do that to every half an onion first, it will make it a lot easier to slice, a lot quicker. Slice. Nobody waiting, Chris? Obviously, if you're going to dice your onions, you would leave the roots on, but because we're slicing, we're taking it out. We don't want to eat that. So I've used 5 onions. If they're larger than this, obviously you can get away with 4. If they're smaller, you probably might have to go to 6. But they do cook down a lot, and you don't want to run out of onion for this pistiladier. I suppose a bit of, while I'm doing this, a bit of history behind the pistiladier. It's from the south of France, but originally it comes from Italy. It's like a pizza, a flat pizza with anchovies from Genoa. Is that right? I think that's how I pronounce it. But then obviously I think the French took it in the south of France, obviously just off Italy, and did it with puff pastry. Generally it's with anchovies, but I don't like anchovies, so I didn't put it on. And basically it's just an onion tart, very traditional, made for sharing. Okay, so now we're on there. We're gonna just start slicing our onions. Nice. You see that's nice. If we go at an angle first, and then all the way around. Okay, I'm not going super thin. I'm still going a little bit thicker. Just so I want some texture. I also want them to caramelize without cooking completely out. Once they get to halfway, I'm going to turn it back around so we've got a nice flat edge. And I'm going to do exactly the same again. So we need to do that for all the onions. This is pretty much all the chopping we'll be doing today, apart from side up the puff pastry. obviously halfway, turn it around, same again. Maybe just over halfway. I was a bit shy on that one. Empty my chopping board so I get more space to work with. Same again, it's a bit of a tedious job, but it's well worth it. This pastry can be eaten hot, cold. It can be kept for later on. You know, put in the fridge and re-warmed up. It's absolutely fine. It's great, like I say, for sharing. Nibble at night. You're at 9 o'clock at night and you fancy a snack. Absolutely perfect. So I'm going to go a bit quicker just so I can get this. I'm talking about the next step. So don't worry about me going ahead. It's just so I can set myself up. Obviously, like I said, you can use those onions. It will just work just as well, but the reason is, obviously, for red onions, extra sweetness, the extra sugar. When we sweat them first before caramelizing, means that the sugar will come out and will help caramelize it as well and give it more of a depth and flavor. Obviously, the color as well, it goes very nice. So there we go. That is me done with the chopping board. So I've got a pan about this size. You can see that properly. The reason I've gone for a wider base pan is so that it will the steam will come off a lot quicker, meaning it will cook down quicker as well. Okay, if you don't have a pan like that, it's fine. It just means the onions will take a little bit longer. That is all. Okay, so what we're going to do now is put that on the stove on a high heat. That's on a high heat. I'm going to get my olive oil. Add my 75 mils of olive oil. And let that warm up. And obviously the next thing that's going to go in is our onions. I've got a lid. So what we're going to do, we're going to sweat it down first, put the lid on, get it really hot and get it cooking on this steam for a second before we take the lid off and let all that evaporate and caramelize down. So, my pan's smells like it's just about there. Get my onions in. I could have waited a second longer. And we're going to get the pinch of salt in with the onions as well. That's just going to draw out any moisture and help it cook again. You know, it's all about speed of cooking these onions. You don't want to stew them. So, that's cooked nice up to heat. You've got the salt in there. Give it a nice stir around. As soon as all the oil and it heats in the pan and you've got all the salts and it starts breaking up a little bit, we're just going to put the lid on and keep the heat high. Okay, it's going to generate a lot of steam. sort of stir now and again, just so they're not catching. We don't want them to burn, but also we want them to caramelise. But it's a good in between. Okay. Lovely. So while that's on the stove, like I said, don't forget about it. But we do want to cook it quite intensely. Next thing, you've got your pre-rolled puff pastry. Obviously, with this actually comes, I didn't realise, parchment paper on there. So we get the whole sheet out on your baking tray. Okay, so it should, maybe not mine. Okay, not so much on mine. So what I'm going to do for mine, I'm just going to trim it just to the size of the tray. And also what I'm going to do, I'm going to take a little edge off either length way as well. With this heat, it can generally come sometimes quite difficult to work with. So what I suggest right now is these little bits that we've taken off the side, we're just going to stick them in the fridge or preferably in the freezer just to chill down, just so when we come to use them in a second with our hot hands as well, obviously that's going to warm it up even quicker. Okay, so I've got my puff pastry there. Still keeping an eye on my onions at the same time. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, taking my onions from a high heat, and I'm just taking it down in between a medium to the high, just so it's not so intense. Right, so you keep cooking that. If it sounds like it's getting a little bit inactive, should we say, just turn it back up. Okay, we just need to keep gradually cooking those onions down. Right, back to the puff pastry. I'm just going to trim up these excess parchment paper that comes on. And I'm going to fork all the puff pastry. This will just stop it rising as much. Obviously puff pastry is layered with butter once it starts rising. It's a bit of a tedious job again, but the more we get in there now, the less pushing down we'll have to do later. I can smell my onions caramelizing slowly. So I'll still get it on a medium to high heat. I'm not too scared that they're going to burn just yet, because there's obviously still lots of moisture to come out of them. But don't forget about them. Obviously, use your sensors. If it starts smelling a bit too much, turn it down, give them a stir, take the lid off, let some steam come out, etc. If you've got the roller to put the holes in the puff pastry, and I'm very jealous right now. I wish I had one. Right, so for me, I'm going to say that's enough. It's quite evenly spread. Obviously, we're still going to get some rise, so you know it's to be expected, but that'll help not so much. So if we're there, I'm just going to get my egg, crack my egg open. Give that a whip. And with the egg as well, we're just going to add a pinch of salt. This will help caramelize a lot deeper. Well, our steam came out. And give that a good stir. I can see them frying. It's starting to caramelise slightly. Right, so what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to take the lid off mine. Okay, I'm just going to turn it down a little touch more. Obviously, without the lid on, the heat's not going to be so intense in there. But this will just help draw the moisture out now. The sugar's slowly coming out still, and it will still caramelise. You can add butter to this. Caramelised onions, which is beautiful, it gives it a bit more of a nutty flavour. But for today, we're just going to use oil. Like I said, I have no pastry brush, so unfortunately I'm using a little bit of tissue. And we're just going to try and get this as even as possible on our puff pastry. A lot more difficult. Oh, there we go. Obviously, you can use your fingers. Obviously, still in the back of your mind, you've got your onions on. Don't want to be forgetting about those. It's a very big part of this dish. Right, lovely. So, here there. Right, I think I'm good with that. Going back to my onions, you see they can't really kind of get in there now, to be honest. I'm just going to turn that down a little bit more, just to more slowly caramelise it for any excess sugar that's not come out, you know, to get the onions that have been caramelised to caramelize without burning the other onions that have caramelised. So it's just about managing our onions now. If it seems like it's getting a little bit too dark, put your lid back on. That'll help steam generate again in the pan, and we'll just keep the caramelization a bit more even. If we're to the point where I am, I'm just going to put this to one side. 1 second. I'm going to get the puff pastry out from the freezer. So I've got my puff pastry here. So the wrong side that I did. I'm just going to trim that up slightly, so it's a bit messy. Okay. And then basically, we're just going to make some edges to our tarts. So I'll go to get this one first. Just from corner to corner, pushing down. The egg will help it stick. And then when it gets to the edge, little trim. And then obviously, because we haven't forked these edges, these will nicely rise and give it a nice tart kind of look. So got that on there, and then I'm going to do the same for all 4 edges. Turn this around, back through, trim it off, and then we're just going to have to measure this part I've got here. I'm just going to measure this, cut it down. If I measure it from there to there, trim it down nice and even. And then we're going to try and get the same kind of thickness the side ones are, just so it looks nice and even when it bakes. Obviously, this is not, you don't really have to make it as even as possible because you're just going to be chopping it up at the end, but it just gives it a nice end finish. And what we're going to do is you're going to go from, so obviously I don't want to overlap them here. I just want them to just touch. I'm just going to push them in together. And then same again, right under the side, just trim it down. And just have that nice, neat edge. Little press, just to try and get the 2 puff pastries to stick as well as possible. And then on the other side as well. what you can do if you want to be really neat is you can put this whole thing in the freezer, take it out and just really nicely trim it up. I think that's a bit OTT today. Okay, so if you've got that, back to your egg wash. You're just gonna egg wash your edges now. Obviously, if we're in a professional kitchen, we would put this in the fridge to set. And then probably egg it twice, just to give it a nice, real nice caramelized finish at the end. Okay, lovely. So like I said, just trimming it up, making sure it's nice and even. Right, we should have something like this. Don't really catch up. Obviously, if you want to, you could do two like half size ones of these to have a bit more of a smaller rectangle. You do little individual ones. You know, the control is your oyster in what size you want to do it. So we're nearly there. We've got our puff pastry. If we're all there, we want to stick this in the oven and we want to put a timer on. Let's go 10 minutes. Okay. It won't be longer than that, but we're going to have a look in 10 minutes if we're good for that. So Alexa, timer for 10 minutes, please. Right, so the rest of your puff pastry, you can put in your freezer, save for another day. For me, I'm not really going to even use it, so I'm just going to have to chuck it away. Your egg, you're done with now, unless you want to re-egg wash it to give it a nice, more caramelized look. It's up to you. So now you've got your puff pastry in the oven. We've got our onions, which I'll show you how mine are now. See how they're getting nice and sticky, really getting lovely and sticky. Okay, so I've managed to draw a lot of that sugar out. So at this stage, like I said, it was optional to give put a bay leaf in there. So I'm going to put mine in. Obviously, when it comes to later on, don't forget that you put it in. So now I put my bay leaf in there. I'm going to add my sugar. So I've gone for Demerara. The reason is because that's what I had. I didn't want to. But normal sugar is absolutely fine. So add our sugar. Give that a stir. And what we're going to do, we're going to put it back on the stove. Turn my heat back up. The only reason I've turned my heat back up is because I've lost a lot of heat taking it off. But if you did all that while it's on the stove, you should still have the heat in the pan. So, put pastries in there. We've got our rockets washed. Goat's cheese is ready, obviously. Can't really do much with goat's cheese. And our balsamic. So, this onions are for me, probably another 5-6 minutes. And what we're going to do, we're going to call something called deglazing. So once we've got that lovely stickiness from the onions and the sugar, we're going to deglaze it with half the balsamic that we had, so 35 mils. So the reason we're doing puff pastry at 180, you could do a bit higher, but you generally can't do puff pastry any lower than 180, because you won't get the rise. It needs that amount of heat to be able for the steam to generate within the layers. So when we add our vinegar in a second, like alcohol, vinegar cooks out, and we're going to lose that really intense vinegar kind of flavour. That's why we put only half in, so later on we can tweak it slightly. Lovely sticky, nice and sticking together. They're soft, but they've still got, they've still got a body towards them. They're not They're not flimsy as anything. And then we're going to add our my laptop. Add our vinegar. Okay, back on the stove we go. But literally only about a minute just to cook that balsamic out. Okay, puff pastry is looking good. I don't know how everybody else says, but it's risen. A bit more than what I wanted. But it's fine. We're going to push that down at the end. If it's too sweet, we add a bit of vinegar. If it's not seasoned enough, you know, we add a bit of salt. It's got that lovely caramelized flavour going through it. So what we can do, just take that off to one side now. And I'm just going to put my lid back on. The reason I'm going to do that is just so it doesn't get too sticky. It's going to keep a bit of moisture in there, so when we come to lay it out onto the puff pastry, we can evenly do it. So that's the onions done. So that's one major part done in the corner. I was thinking today I might get a few comments when this goes on YouTube about a traditional pissoladier. But we'll see, we'll see. Sam and Franz finds it out, about where's the anchovies. Right. If you're using any kind of other cheese, you need to kind of dice it now or grate it now, because obviously with the goat cheese that I've got, I'm just going to crumb this, and I won't need to do anything like that. So, but obviously if you've got a different cheese that you can crumb, then it's fine. I'm more meaning like a hard cheese. All right, I'm just going to check my puff pastry. So I'm just going to turn it around slightly, just because it looks, my oven is not the greatest. It's caramelizing a bit too much on the back and not on the front. Obviously, when you come to take it, when you come to open the oven door, don't leave the oven door open too long, because you're going to lose all that hot air and the puff pastry will sink. I have my rocket now. I haven't washed this yet. That's my next job. So I've got my lovely rocket to wash. I'm sure I don't need to show you that. Even if you've got, I would say, pre-washed rocket, I think it's a good idea to wash it anyway, because sometimes the companies put, you know, some chemicals in there to keep it fresher for longer. It's up to you, you know, it's not going to harm you, but for me, I just like to wash anything off that it's got on there. So my timer's going off. Obviously, that's going to need a good another 5-6 minutes. So how should the pastry look? So right now, mine's looking very anemic still, but we want it to look almost as colour as my Demerara sugar, maybe. You know, you want a nice caramelisation. We don't want it soggy in the middle. So yeah, real nice golden brown. If we have to open the door up in a minute to turn it around again, and so be it. It depends on your oven. If it's going to take a little bit longer than it's 5-6 minutes, or if it's done already, all depends on how powerful your oven is and how well it circulates the heat. Lovely, lovely. So while we're waiting for the puff pastry, we could just break up our goat's cheese. If you are using goat's cheese like me, a good trick is to just wet your fingers slightly. If you wet your fingers slightly before crumbling, it shouldn't stick as much. I say you shouldn't, you just stuck straight away. But generally, generally it doesn't stick. But yeah, I'm just getting that onto a plate, ready to go on top. I think this is an extra soft goat cheese, or it's just being out for with the heat. That's what it is. But what I'm going to do now, see how it's risen up in the middle, as I don't want it to. I'm just going to push this down, get some of that air out. Okay, I'm just going to keep flattening it without flattening the edges. You know, with me there, it's just not coming out. So I'm just going to make a couple of holes, and that will let the steam come out. We just want to get that as flat as possible and as much air out of there as possible. See how my edges are coming up nice and high. Can't remember the last time I used this puff pastry, so it could differ to what I'm used to. So I'm just going to carry my goat cheese. So with this as well, you could add, you could add roasted courgette, roasted aubergine, chicken. I don't know how well that would go down with the Italians. It's whatever you like. Just you can't fill it up too much because obviously it's going to be quite difficult to eat. But generally use the onions and then add whatever you want on. Make a Hawaiian pissalade if you like. Right, Alexa, stop. You can add some fresh chili on there, some chili flakes. It's very versatile in that way. Or just go back to traditional anchovies, whoever likes them. Just broken it up slightly. There's my goat cheese there. So just nice pieces, we're just going to garnish it on top. We're going to use half of that at the beginning to put back in the oven. And then once it's cold or cooled or just warm, we're going to add the other half a load of that goat cheese. This will we'll put it back in the oven with the onions and the puff pastry. It's just going to, like I say, just merge those flavors together a bit better. You don't have to do that. You could have your onions, then your goat cheese, then your rocket. That's just what I like to do. So, with my puff pastry, Alexa, stop. I'm just going to push it down a little bit more again. And then, right, so push it back a bit. What we're going to do now is take your bay leaf out of your onions. Give your onions a taste again, because the flavour will have changed slightly. The vinegar, and all that might have cooked out a little bit more. You might need to adjust it. No, it's okay with me. To be honest, when I said earlier about the adding more vinegar to them, I'm not going to do that. I think it's got enough vinegar there. I haven't cooked it out too much, so I've still got the taste of slight. So what we're going to do is add onto here. Just try and get as even as possible. If you think that it's too much onion, for me it's never enough onion. If that is too much, just keep one to one side, and like we said, just store it. Put it in the fridge. Keep some nice cheese, snacks, etc. And then with without burning yourself, with the back of the spoon, it's going to get some nice, all those lovely corners. And we're just going to put it back in the oven. Back in the oven for around about 2 minutes. That's all. Right. So yeah, so 2 minutes with the onions in, and we're going to put the goat cheese on. 1 minute of the goat cheese on. Out it comes. We're going to get it off the tray pretty much straight away, just so it helps any of that extra steam underneath the puff pastry escape, so you don't end up with a soggy bottom. Right, back out. Goat cheese on. You know, I'm just not doing it so evenly, but obviously I want to cover most of this. So I'm just bearing this in mind of when I cut it, portion it, that each piece is going to at least have a piece of goat's cheese on. So every bite should have a little bit of something. Obviously, we're going to use some more in a second. So right now, if you got it, a little crack of pepper would be nice. I know I didn't put it on the recipe list. A little bit of pepper. Go down the tree. Back in. Go 1 minute on there. With my rocket, I'm going to add a little bit of olive oil. And a little dressing of balsamic. No, just half the goat's cheese, sorry. Yeah, and then we're going to add the other goat's cheese a little later, just so we got some different textures of goat's cheese on there, some melted, some fresh. And now we're just going to add lovely pieces of rocket. Like I said, for me, you want every bite to have a little bit of everything. So the pepperiness of the rocket, you know, the goat's cheese creaminess, and then we're going to add the more fresh goat's cheese back on top of the rocket. And then, like I said, let's get that out. Oven off. Thank God. And that's it, guys. So you can add a little drizzle of olive oil, which I'm going to do to give it a lovely shine. You can add a tiny bit more vinegar to that if you like. You can add more goat's cheese. We can add more rocket. You know, just right now it's to make it as you want it. Just taking the parchment off now. And there we go, guys. So the way I would do it is I'll probably go straight down the center, and then 1, 2, 3, or even, sorry, maybe just 6 out of there, or 1, 2, and then 1, and then 6 from there to get a nice 12 pieces. Or 9, sorry. That's it. Any questions? Any questions from anybody? Everybody looking good? Everybody got theirs done? No questions? All good? Oh, I must have done my job well then. Evening. Enjoy the Pistadio. Take care. Have a lovely evening.
Thank you. See you later.
See you later. Bye, guys.